to get to know, a little bit more about, maybe update us on what you're doing right now currently and how everything is working out. And then we're going to talk a little bit about millennials.
Yeah, sure. And it's funny, Yosef, you got to call out. That's my brother, Brad. I didn't even really know he was going to be on here, so that's funny. But it's cool to see him getting in the mix. So anyway, what's up, guys? Really nice to meet all of you. And if you have any questions at any point, raise a hand, interrupt. Like, it's fun that way. But anyway, yeah, just a little bit more on my current focus. I'm all into the 12-week year right now. I don't know if anyone has read that book, but that's kind of the operating system that kind of adopted like a month ago. And then with some of the groups that I do, we're kind of all in on that. And then just the actual business focuses within that right now are for me growing just in really two main areas. That's kind of always been my problem. I always try to do more than I should, or bite off more than I can chew. So right now the two focuses are a wholesaling and flipping business that I'm growing with two partners in Louisville, Kentucky, and then an Airbnb business in North Carolina, three Airbnb properties that I own, and now getting into Airbnb arbitrage. So that's kind of a random one, but negotiating with buildings now, it's been like a very interesting learning, and then picking up some leases to furnish and build out with. And then, yeah, kind of as Nico alluded to, I'm like a big systems and process nerd. So like if there's anything I have to do more than once, I try to document the process just for my own self. I have a horrible memory, so I don't want to have to think more than my, brain can burn calories. So I usually just build out a lot of checklists or put it into Notion or Asana. And then through that, one of my favorite books ever, I read this kind of every time I feel lost and I don't feel productive, Free to Focus by Michael Hyatt. His like big philosophy, which I really love, similar to like 4 Hour Work Week from Tim Ferriss, is stop doing things that you're not good at or that you don't like doing. So in building out a lot of checklists and real estate, I found you could do that with a lot of things, and even in marketing as well, like checklisting a lot of things and organizing steps. It kind of made me better at my own systems to have processes, but then also hand them off. So that's something that, just been a fun thing for me. But even with like the podcast or anything I do, I just love the concept of, seeing what we can turn into a process and then get off our plate and then, keep moving ourselves up to, higher and better uses of our time. So that's it for me. As far as like other business stuff, excited to say this was the first year I hit, quote unquote, stage one financial freedom, just with my investments covering my basic needs, which was always kind of a goal of mine. And now just trying to, grow community and, help other people do the same and just put out a lot of content and do it that way. So yeah, that's how I think I connected with Joseph actually through my brother. That's why I had to call him out here because my brother's still in New York, just had a baby and, he's doing great and he's got a proper dinner contract, but he connected me with Joseph and, connecting with everyone. I mean, that's the other thing. I'm ranting here, but man, 2020, the year of Zoom, I met more people in 2020, and now keeping track of all these relationships is like the best thing ever. That I met more people in 2020 than I met my whole life. So like, sure, a lot of bad things, but like I met Yosef through my brother, connecting with him. I don't even know how they got connected, but like now I'll probably connect with some of you guys, and it's just amazing not knowing who you're going to do your next deal with or do your next collaboration with. It's fun. I like it a lot more than the corporate world that I came out of, which is like me versus you, or, don't talk to me about improving yourself. Education stopped at college. So I like this crowd a lot better.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think I got connected to Brett through LinkedIn, right? I think that's, and then Brett was like, "Oh, you're in a multifamily." And then, do you know, I have a brother who does multifamily or real estate investing too. He has this platform called Millennial, Millennial Millionaire, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I got connected to Jonathan. And we're gonna talk about that platform. So I know you lead this Facebook group called Millennial Millionaires. Please tell us about what this Facebook group is about.
I know it's a tongue twister. I thought about it for so long if we should make it easier to say, but we kind of just ran with it because it's the same name as the podcast. Anyway, it all started with, this is a perfect plug. I should call Joe and tell him that he's getting all this FaceTime on these podcasts. But if you guys haven't read it, it's kind of like the Bible of multifamily investing. Joe Fairless's best ever syndication book. He's got a daily running podcast, which he doesn't really do anymore, but Joe's a great guy. And I love his stuff. Don't worry, I'm going to come back to what you said, Joseph, but I love his stuff because his book was my favorite real estate investing book because there was no fluff. Joe turns everything into a step-by-step process.
Mhm.
You want to get connected to brokers, reach out to 10 brokers a day and say this script. You want to get better at analyzing deals, create a pod and analyze a deal a day until you're good enough to make offers. Like he just breaks, there's no, like, it's idiot proof. You know, like I don't say that in a bad way. I say it in the best way possible. So like that was the first book that I was like, wow, I want Joe to be kind of my multifamily mentor. But anyway, reading that book, he's like, you should start a podcast. He runs a daily podcast, or used to run the longest daily podcast. Now he's kind of handed it off. But anyway, I literally read that. And at the beginning, end of 19, going into 20, like around this time last year, I was like all in multifamily or bust, whatever. And he's like, people need to know who you are if you want to raise money. Cause that was my whole thing at the beginning. I was like, that has to be the hardest part of all this. Like, how do you raise money? And then after reading it, and now this year, I'm like, raising money isn't hard. It's the deal that's hard, you know, but like, it's always what you don't have is hard anyway. But in that book, he's like, you should start a podcast. It's the best way for people to know you. You can interview all these people that you want to meet. You could ask them all your questions. And that's why I did it. And I had no clue. And this isn't a plug, but now we turned that into a process. And now we sell as a course for a podcast that we do daily for $9 an episode. Don't worry, like not selling anything here, but just again, process stuff. But kind of got it from that. And then along with it, the Facebook group was just kind of like a natural byproduct of it. And then, yeah, it's just been fun to do. We do a daily one and then the Facebook group, you know, do a lot of giveaways to grow it. And we have virtual assistants that are kind of tapping into other groups and DMing people to try to grow it as well. And just try to increase awareness and spread a message that, you know, I think helps people and can help, you know, get them a little passive income or big goals too. But yeah, that was the story with the podcast. And then like, I have no editing experience. So I was like, I don't even know what this thing is. Like, what do I, dynamic condenser, like who knows? So basically just started and then, you know, it gets better with refinement. The first episode, you know, I still keep, it's horrible, but it's like a reminder that like, you know, you got to do the bad to get to the good. And then the Facebook group was just like a really fun thing with it. And I think it's like 23 or 2,400 people now in like 11 months. So just been fun and, you know, getting the word out. So yeah.
That's great. In 11 months, 2,400 people following up. I think there's a big win. We have, before we dive into further, we have a couple questions. Kevin, I know you typed in, but I want you to speak up because I want it to be more dynamic that way.
Yeah,
That's,
sure.
I think, what's good about a meetup, right?
Yeah, let's do it. So my question to you was, when you were acquiring your house hacks, were you using a HELOC to purchase the next property, or were you just using money that you saved up?
I was doing it just FHA 3.5% down. I wasn't making a lot of money at all when I kind of got into the game. But my whole thing was financial freedom. So I was like, okay, for most people, their biggest expense is living. So I was like, I need to do that whatever way possible. So if it's a 5% down traditional loan, if it's a 3.5% FHA, do it that way. So that's how I did it. And then I just rented out the rooms. I was 22. So it was, you know, I didn't have kids, I didn't have a wife. It was just easy. I could just rent out the rooms.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I did it. And then the years after that, it was just, you know, either 5 or 10% down, the same kind of strategy. I would just save up. I mean, I'm also really cheap, but I'll put as much money as I can into rentals. So I just
Yeah.
save a lot and then try to side hustle, save up some cash.
And then once you got past that fourth, where you can no longer move into your primary residence, did you just go commercial, or how did the financing work on that end?
So, I mean, I still could get loans in my name, like with that strategy, you know, like it really just, I think depends on which ceiling you hit first, either the property number type, you know, which I think is like 7 or 8. I'm not exactly sure what it is, Fannie, Freddie, or it's just whatever your debt to income taps out at.
Yeah.
So you can do as many as you can until you hit that ceiling. Like I know I have 2 cards left, but
Mhm.
I'm looking to use those cards on, not to get too off topic here, I'm looking to use those on second home loans where I can put 10% down and then put them on Airbnb. So I still think that's the best bang for my buck on residential 30-year fixed rate bank debt, which is the best debt you can get. But yeah, like I'm living in a refied house hack right now, and it's just a 4 unit, and you know, it just, you know, worked like that.
Okay. All right.
Actually, a follow-up on that, John, because I was on another webinar earlier in the week, and they were asking, basically, you know, their guy and their group, they basically they had the process of FHA, right, like you did, followed by refinance after 3 months out of the FHA into conventional loan, which I had never heard of before. So I'm curious if anybody else had. And then they buy another FHA because I was under the impression that you can only do FHA once because it's your primary, but they were getting out of those and essentially, I guess, doing that 20 times. So I was wondering, I mean, what about just the refinancing costs of that? I'm curious. Just, I suppose financially it must work for them, but if you keep, I guess if you keep doing that, it would just be interesting if that seemed worthwhile. How about that?
I would be amazed. I'd be very interested to know how they're doing that. Cause I mean, that just sound, if you could do that, that sounds great. The banks that I went to, even like this property I'm in right now was purchased as an FHA. And then, actually, no, it's not a good like reference to that, but no, typically I think banks will want either the equity to come up enough to have 20% to then back it into a traditional loan. You know, the FHA, I think it's tough to refi when it's not at least at 20% equity. So I'd be curious to hear. But then again, like that was another thing I didn't really understand at the beginning. Like I used to take what one bank would tell me and just like think it was the way. And now it's like talk to different banks, different cities, different types. And like I still can't believe how different the spread is in answers. So
Yeah.
that's cool. That's a cool tool to maybe keep in the belt. I haven't done that, but that sounds amazing if you can do it.
Yeah, my sense was that these were guys that they do this just like Nico does, too, and they host occasional webinars, and my sense was that they basically had a specific lender that they were tied in, right? Just like a specific doctor has a referral with a specific chiropractor, right? It's basically the same, almost mafia, and their lender essentially allowed them, whatever program. They're based in Jersey, and so they were able to refinance out of FHAs into conventional after 3 months every time. So I was like, wait a second, 3 months? I wouldn't even bother moving in, as a primary residence. I would just, put a chair there and say I live there, and then, wait the 3 months out each time, right? So if anybody had heard of that, because FHAs to me seem very, um, I thought they were very limited, but then it seems that there is actually a lot of expansion and range on them than I thought.
One thing that I feel like I need to say, I actually at this point I don't really like the FHA product. Like I wouldn't do it again. I'd rather find a bank that could do 5 or 10% down instead of the 3.5%, because the only way to get rid of the PMI on an FHA loan is to do a refinance. Whereas with a traditional mortgage product that you put 5 or 10% down, if you just get a refinance when you get to 20% equity, they'll get rid of the PMI. So but like what happened was in some cases, if you try to do the refi to get rid of that PMI, like right now, I moved. Okay, so this is what I was going to say before. I bought this with an FHA. Now I wanted to do a refinance on it because I have equity that I wanted to take out of it, but the rate is so low now that the rate that I had originally with the FHA was lower. So the only way, like if I were to have done this as an investment property, I would have it wouldn't have made any sense. The fees would have been higher and my rate would have stayed the same. So the only way it made sense, I moved back into it and declared it a primary residence. And don't worry, if there's any bankers here, I'm not committing mortgage fraud. I do live here. I've been living here for 5 months. But basically, that's the thing, because an FHA loan, that PMI never goes away. I didn't really understand that at the beginning, but like it's an amazing way to get started for beginners. I'm like, do it. If you're not going to do a deal and you have no money, like get in the game. But like, I'd rather see you wait maybe 5 months or borrow a little money from a family member or get a cosigner from mom or dad. And then that way you could do a 5 or 10% down, still not a ton of money out of pocket, but you don't have to worry about this PMI forever. So I just want to say that that's very important. I'm not like in love with FHA loans like I was, because now I'm like, to shake it, you might never find a scenario where the refi makes sense to get rid of it and you're paying this PMI for such a long time. Hope that made sense.
I guess I'll add one more follow up actually as a follow along that example. So when you put down 3.5%, let's say you wait maybe a year to refi out of that FHA into a conventional, right? So you don't do the 3 months like these guys do. You go a little bit long, a more reasonable time. let's say you get up to 20% at that juncture, do they get rid of the PMI there, or is there some kind of particular stipulation that the PMI is always there, even if you get over 20% that I might have missed?
It's always there.
Really?
That's the issue with it. And then
Wow.
sometimes like if rates keep going down, by the time you want to do the refi, it might not even make sense. Like
Zero.
between the fees and the rate being lower now than it was when you locked it up, it might not make sense. You're stuck with it. So with a
Wow.
regular non-FHA loan, like a 5 or 10% down, just live in, the PMI will go away
That's
when you get to 20% if you just get an appraisal done, or if you hit a certain payment number on the AM schedule.
Wow. So there are some people that in the last month of their FHA payment, right? We're talking 20, 30 years from now, that last payment, they're paying PMI. That's insane.
30 years.
Wow. 30 years from now, someone is paying a PMI. Wow. I didn't know that. That's an
Never goes away.
outrageous service charge, right? Wow.
That's why the banks have the biggest buildings in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
John, I'm going to shift a little bit in here. So do you now, you know, millennials, let's talk a little bit about them because they can be the biggest tenant base for us. They could be investors for us. They could be partners. They're old enough, you know, to partner on these deals with us. What should we know in general? What are some of the characteristics we should look for in a millennial? How can we best serve them? Let's shift a little bit to talk about the millennial as a partner, a tenant, an investor. Maybe you can shed some light onto that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to figure them out too. But no, basically, you know, I think for a lot of them, they're looking for their entry into real estate. They're looking for their path. The bigger pockets message really resonates with them because it's simple strategies that don't require a ton of money. You know, I think that the millennials that get ahead of it can benefit from all of the other millennials that are going to be renters their whole lives. So I feel like it's completely one or the other. But at the same time, I feel like they're out there trying to figure out how to get in. I was talking to Joseph and Unico before we got started, but like I think a lot of them, they have the time, they have the energy to hunt down deals maybe, or, you know, to make calls or door knock or whatever. I mean, you know, like I've done all those things and people in my group do them all the time, but like they're not exactly sure the best strategy to get in. Like for example, for me, I didn't really understand, you know, that a KP was someone that could like enable me to do a massive deal that I found somehow, and I just didn't have the financing to take it down. And for those who don't know, KP, key principal, basically they bring a balance sheet or a net worth to a loan that you don't need to bring yourself. And like strategies like that, I think they're trying to figure out, but I think a lot of them are sticking to, you know, things that they know and can see and feel and get started, you know, house hacking, doing burst stuff, a lot of wholesaling. I mean, that's wholesaling is, you know, just if you have a phone and you have legs, you could start wholesaling, you know, just go knock on doors. So, but I think a lot of them do aspire to be multifamily investors. You know I do. I know a lot of people in the group, that's what they want to grow up into, but they're just not sure the ways to kind of get into deals. And now, and another thing I was saying to you guys before, I think a lot of them even would love the idea of, and I recommend this now to a lot of people, if they are accredited or they can get access to accredited money from a family member, you know, to invest in a syndication or invest in a multifamily deal so they can get the learnings. Like one of my best friends in multifamily now, that's exactly how he got into multifamily. He didn't feel comfortable enough just jumping in and taking blind action, and he also didn't want to pay 50,000 for coaching. So, you know, he started bringing value to a syndicator, and then he actually got a parent of his to invest with that syndicator, and then he started doing syndications himself. So I think there's just a curiosity, but you know, a lot of them are trying to figure out what are the low or no money down strategies, or how do I find a mentor without paying $50,000, or how do I get the learning without paying that? So that's what I see a lot of times.
Yeah, John, great points. Now, let's stick with that for a minute because many people, not just millennials, are looking to get into the deal somehow, right? And you mentioned something. It might have, you know, the key principle. Let's give a scenario. So now, let's say you had a 15 unit you were looking at. It's just you, right? What would you do next? You maybe you're close to getting this thing under contract. You have a good chance. What are you going to do? You're all alone. What would you do next?
So, okay. Well, what I would do, I would still probably find a partner. I would still like at this point now, at the beginning, and I think like a lot of people, and like in a year from now, I'll say looking back, like I even didn't have enough. But I feel like at the beginning, it's easy to have ego in a lot of things we do and think like I can figure out a way to do it in my part time better than people that do it full time. And like that's just not a thing. Like people that look at this stuff every day. So even if I had a great deal fall in my lap right now, or like I was prospecting, I went and lived in Kentucky and Indiana for 3 months when COVID hit. I literally just picked up, my life was virtual. I just went there. I was like, this is what I think I need to do to learn the business. But even still with that, I mean, I had deals under contract there. I had a 16 unit and I had a 7 unit under contract, and they both fell through and I lost money on due diligence. Now I learned a lot, and like, some things might be blessings in disguise, some might not be. But now I'm at the point where I feel like unless I can give it my 100% full attention, or have a mentor or have a coach on it with me, or someone that's experienced doing the deal JV wise, it's probably not the smartest thing for me to do unless I'm accepting that I'm going to take some bumps and bruises. So that's, I would probably, feel it out to people that either I knew in the market or had friends of friends in that market that I could see if we could work something out JV wise, joint venture and partner, and, them bring some operating experience to the table. And maybe I can bring some capital and maybe some behind the screen stuff if they're kind of boots on the ground and run around all day. Or I would honestly find like a KP, key principal, kind of like we were talking about, who I'd give up some equity in the deal and just let them look over my shoulder and help me with some of this instead of trying to take on the burden myself. And that's a very different answer than I would have given like 6 months, Nico. And like, it could change, but just right now, like it's, the first one you're going to learn if you do it yourself, but it's, there's a cost to everything. It's either the cost of the mistakes, the cost of the equity, or the cost of the coach. But there is going to be some cost. Like you can't just jump in and be great the second you start. So that's probably what I do. Like I'm thinking also through Brad, my brother's a great connector. And when I was doing that Midwest trip, he was basically behind the screen. I was in the car. He was connecting me with all these people on Bigger Pockets in Indy and Dayton, and I'm sorry, I don't know how we didn't connect, Teresa, but basically in all these cities. And then I would go meet them. And now they're like friends for life, like good friends. So if I had a deal in one of those cities, I would call them and say like, hey, you want to tag up on this? If I didn't have that, I would start with referrals and go friends of friends. Next, I'd probably go on Bigger Pockets and just, or the episodes, the people that have been on the shows, and I'd probably start asking or filtering by location. And then I would bring it to someone that had experience. I would try to find like a Neil Bawa or Joe Fairless, maybe a little bit smaller, but I would try to find one of those people and say, hey, I'll give up a lot of equity here. I think it's a good deal, but, I'd love to take it down with you. And, like, what's my value in this? And most of them are willing to play ball. That's probably what I would do.
Yeah, so I'm a firm believer in teams also, because to try to nail something down yourself, especially as a newbie or somewhat of a newbie, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. Now, by a lot of times that mentality can get you into trouble, where you're thinking you're going to be so rich and you can keep this deal for yourself, like you're saying. But in the end, if you were to open up your mindset a little bit to share the opportunity for other people who are more experienced, you're going to be able to increase and actually create a business as opposed to a disastrous first, investment, let's say. So one avenue is to create a team, is what you're saying, which I love. And then the second avenue you're saying, besides getting a coach or a mentor, like you're saying, is you're going to have to pay. The second avenue is to throw a deal passively in. So, and you're kind of paying for a coach in that way also, but you're getting paid, and you're going to be working with the general sponsor, the general partner throughout to learn. So that's a good way also. So, let's talk first about putting together a solid team on a deal. Who would you want? How many people? And then we'll talk about passive, going the passive route and learning as you're getting income that way.
Yeah. This year for me has probably been the biggest of like assessing my, thanks to that Michael Hyatt book, of assessing what I'm either not good at doing or really just don't like doing. And like my brother knows this, like I hate analyzing deals. It is like, I'd rather, I could give a talk to 20,000 people. I can create content. I can do calls. I could talk to brokers. I can build relationships. I can think big. I can, whatever, all that. but like analyzing deal is the last thing I want to do. Like I can't stand it. Like a broker will send me a deal and it'll just sit, or I'll like fiddle with it. So for me, that was something that I felt like if there was any chance I was going to do this, I either needed to partner with those people or solve for that by just like getting around people that were doing it, or like hiring someone that could just like analyze these deals, you know, like, and it's harder in multifamily for sure, but that's something I would definitely hire for. But like when I think about it, you know, like there needs to be kind of, I mean, in all business, you know, there's marketing, there's sales, there's operations, there's kind of finance, there's asset management. So those are like the main buckets that I think about. And then like for me, I'm just, I'd say more of kind of like, and I used to think this was, I don't, Joseph, I don't want to curse. I used to think this was such a douche thing when people would be like, oh, I'm like the big picture person, you know, like I used to be like, nah, you're just lazy. But like now working with some people and hiring people that are just like really detail oriented, like they love being detail oriented. I'm like, you did something in 5 minutes that you like doing that would have taken me 3 hours and I would have hated every minute of it. So like really self-reflecting. And the way that I found out more about that is just like doing more and like taking more action and like small stuff, not like go out and get a 50 unit under contract to figure out like if you like dealing with tenants. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying like little actions will helped me understand what I like doing and what I don't like doing. Like I love building systems. I love creating content. I love talking to people. I like, you know, I do like acquiring properties, but again, the analysis part was just a real bottleneck for me. So like those are the things that I felt I kind of needed to solve for. And then I guess just the last thing on that is like having more candid conversations up front. Like I had a partnership that kind of ended badly this year. And, you know, really, I think with each experience and a partner, I've realized more and more like there just needs to be a couple uncomfortable conversations on the front end where you take off your friend hat and you turn on your business hat and you just act like you don't know each other and you say, what are you bringing to this deal? Here's what I'm bringing to this deal. Is there enough overlap there? Or do we not even know what we're missing? Do we need someone that's done this before to outline the steps? And then we each put our name next to one of the steps. And like that, I just, every venture I get into now, I realize like it can't be blind leading the blind. It's got to be value from both sides. And like if you partner with someone you're just like, or likes doing the same thing as you, it's just bad. Like it's gonna unravel. So that's how I think about it, and that's kind of how I recommend, you know, other people too.
Jonathan, I think you just pinpointed a very good point on a partnership, because I truly believe that finding a partnership is like a marriage, right? You got to know yourself, and you got to know the other side, and then you got to make sure it's mutually beneficial. And it was a very good point that if you just be a partner with someone, you just think that is a nice person, you're gonna get burned, because it's about business, and you gotta reflect yourself as to what kind of value you could add to the other side, and vice versa. You gotta the other side has to also know him or herself and be able to add value to you. So I think finding a partnership, through my finding a partnership, I realized that it's not only about getting to know of the other side, but also getting to know of yourself, and as to what you're good at, what kind of value you can provide, and how, as a team, you can achieve bigger things that way, and synergy, right?
Mhm.
I think that's a great point. All right, and actually, having said that, another component of, I guess, working effectively or efficiently is not only finding a partner, but also finding someone who can support you or support staff, right? And I know you're a big fan of virtual assistant, so let's talk about a little bit of that. Who are these virtual assistants to you?
They're first off, you know, most of these virtual assistants, like there's this stigma that they're like in a cave in like Indonesia and they're like barely on internet. These people speak better English than like most of my friends. So like let's just get that out of the way. And like they have MBAs and like they're savvy and professional. I mean, sure, don't get me wrong. Like there's definitely times they're not. And like, you know, there's economics to everything in the world. In some way you get what you pay for, but there are hacks to it, I think. Like I challenge everyone on this call right now to try to figure out one computer or phone related task this week that you can outsource to a virtual assistant. And like doing it once and waking up 8 hours later when you go to bed and having an entire task completed, it's like crack. Like at least for me, it was like, it just became such a fun thing. Like, oh my God. Like I used to think like I only have 24 hours in a day. And then I was like, whoa, like, no, I have infinity time. It's just about leverage. Like, I forget, I don't know, anyone here has read Atlas Shrugged, but it's like you give someone a big enough lever, they can move the world. Like, that's it. Like, leverage. So, anyway, as far as like specific tasks, I mean, Yosef, which way you want to go, like hiring or managing or like tasks, whatever you think the group would get the most value out of.
Well, let's start with how many VAs are you using currently?
5.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a
And
lot of crack.
right, it's
A
a lot
lot
of
of crack, man. How do you think I got all this energy?
Right, you have like 80 hours 80 hours a day. All right, so just briefly, what do they do for you? Like, what kind of tasks are you outsourcing?
Okay, so I mean, and you know what? I'll send it to you after. Like and if you guys, one of my favorite people in the space, and I'd say like when I was really into multifamily, became an informal mentor, and he was on the podcast, Neil Bawa. But that guy, you know, he goes by like the nutty professor, you know, like the mad scientist in multifamily. We basically just like, actually that's another kind of concept. Anything I do, I'll just rip people off. You know, like if I see something I like I'm just gonna copy it. Like if the best people are doing something, like I'm gonna copy it. So like I was on a webinar that he was doing one night, and he would just walk through his whole hiring process of virtual assistants. I was like, okay, we're gonna start doing that tomorrow. So we just started. Like I was screenshotting the whole thing and just doing his step by step. And I guess that's like the information is all out there. Like one of my favorite quotes is like, you know, if it was about information, librarians would be billionaires. Like you just got to do it. Like you got to hire your first task. But anyway, like some of the early tasks were like podcast stuff. Okay. But I want to make it like applicable to anyone else that's like here. So like the first one we started doing was, let's say, like looking for deals. So we had virtual assistants that were just scanning public records in Kentucky, pulling tax liens, probates, permit issues, water turnoffs. Like they can pull the records. They know how to, like these services that you can find on Upwork, or if you just get on Facebook groups and look it up, like, and search, hey, I'm looking for a VA to help scrub like county lists, and call them, like you can find that. So this is one we're like growing and building on today. But you know, they will pull those records, they'll get in touch with the courts, they will skip trace the records. And for those that don't know what that means, it basically just means they find contact information. You know, a lot of these are like abandoned homes. So they find contact information. And then from there, some of them even cold call, or you can just hire cold calling for $5-6 an hour. And they're just calling all day, or texting, or doing ringless voicemail. And that's just like one. I mean, I could stop, or if anyone has comments or questions, like for the podcast, like I do a daily podcast and I literally don't even know who's coming on every day. Like I do 7 recordings in one day. The first time I see who's coming on the show is the day of, when I just see the call log, because they've already scrubbed Best Ever, Bigger Pockets, and one other podcast. And they just do the outreach and they reach out to the people, and I just go on and see who I'm talking to. And then they do the show notes and the editing. So then I just see the notification when it goes out. So like, those are a couple examples, but like, I'll just pause. I know it's kind of a lot of stuff.
That's cool, man. So we're getting a lot of feedback here. People are interested in this VA stuff. Now, people can unmute themselves. I see Christine's got some questions, but basically related to, do you use them for cold calling and to maybe build or pull a list?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's pretty much what I do most. I mean, I've been in commercial real estate since 2006 over here in Miami, sending you guys, well, it was sunshine and blue skies and some palm trees, but now obviously it's dark. Thanks for mentioning about the VAs. Yeah, that's one of the things that I run across, is that a lot of them have experience with residential, but not so much on the commercial. So I'm definitely curious about how they pull the lists and works for you. So thanks.
I mean, even like this is part like VA, and then, you know, some of it I was doing, but like VAs can definitely do this part too. It's the same thing. It just like there's a couple more steps, but like when I was in Kentucky, for example, my favorite strategy to find deals. And again, I know this isn't going to work on like 100 units and over, but maybe some of you guys are doing deals smaller than that. Was like, I would just call on for rent signs, and I'd say something like, "Hey, I'm an investor, but I'm also looking for a place to live. I like, I would love to see your place. Not sure if you'd ever consider selling, but either way, like, I would just love to come and meet." And just, I want to get in front of the person. And then from there, you know, they see that you come put together and you're a professional, and, you know, you can gauge then right there. So that could be one that even like, I know a lot of my friends that are doing more like they're doing a lot of subject lease option stuff, but they have VAs that are calling for sale or for rent signs all day, and literally just asking, "Hey, I know this is out of the blue, it's crazy, probably a total long shot, but would you ever consider selling your property if an offer came through?"
Oh
Now,
yeah, that's great. I mean, but how can a VA do that if they're not local?
you mean
Are
call
they
or?
are they pulling it from Craigslist or something?
Oh yeah, Craigslist,
Okay.
Facebook, apartments.com, Rentometer, I mean, Zillow, for, you know, all those. That's
Oh,
what I
okay.
would do.
Have you set up like the task on Loom or something to show them how to do that, or?
Loom. Okay. Loom is amazing. If you guys aren't using Loom, like, you don't need to have meetings anymore. Like,
I know.
like, yeah. So we use, I mean, the main tools we're using all day are Slack, Loom, and Notion. Notion is like our project management tool. I know a lot of people use Asana, but those are the main ways that we organize tasks and communicate with everyone. But yeah, I mean, and then there's other tools we use as far as like real estate tools, but those are the main ones for like communicating and just task management.
And where do you pull your list from?
We buy them from again, we're not doing anything bigger right now, multifamily, but we buy them from a company. I don't even want to endorse them yet because they're still kind of new to us. If you really want, I mean, I could. I can't say if they're good or bad. I don't want to give them like free press, but basically they're good. And then, I mean, they pull the lists that are already skip traced. So there are a lot of services out there, guys. Like, I'll say,
Of
again,
course.
I don't want to. I'm not with them long enough to say like go do it. I'd feel bad if
Right.
people did it and it wasn't good. But
It's your fault.
yeah, exactly. You know, or like, you know, I just, anyway. So, but I'll just say this: if you just Google, like, there are a lot of lists that you guys can buy that are already skip traced, you know,
Of
and then
course.
you hand it off and you can put it in a dialer.
Yeah, list
And then,
source. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, I don't know if list source has leads that are already skipped,
Well,
but
a lot of times when you run across those, if I may, there are a lot of residential. So when you tell them, hey, it's an LLC and you've got to do a couple of hurdles to get to a number, and then you don't even know if that number is the real principal. It could be a secretary or property manager or, a guard gate person. So what
true.
company did you mention that you do with the skip tracing?
The leads are skip traced. I mean,
Right.
yeah, I mean,
You
I'll
want to
say
keep
it.
you. Yeah. You
I
want to
mean,
hang on to that nugget.
it's also very expensive, but it's called Call Magic.
Okay.
The other one, this one I'd say I feel very good about, and it's already out there, but so Call Magic is buying skip traced leads, and they will call. They're a call center as well. But another one that I know is much cheaper and the lead quality is very good. It's called Natimark. And
How do you spell that?
Natimark.
Natimark.
Yeah, that's one that I know they sell skip traced leads, and then you can just have someone call through them, or put them in a dialer.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
That's great. I mean, over here for me, I mean, yeah, and having CoStar, obviously, like you mentioned about the for rents, yeah, that's a great kind of shoe in to getting into the owner.
yeah, I find people don't want to do that. So like, I couldn't believe
I
how
think it's
many
great.
owners or property managers were open to it, or the property manager was also a broker, so they would be willing to push it along because they could maybe make a sale.
Right.
Like, that surprised me. I had a lot of limiting beliefs and fear around that until I started calling and just had that script, and I was surprised how receptive they were. And then I could go see them. Now, again, I don't want anyone here to say like, oh, I'm not in a territory, I can't do that. If you tag up or partner with someone in that territory, they can be boots on the ground. You could set up the appointments and then they can go out and see them.
Yep,
So,
I totally agree. Yep. So over here in Miami, I mean, that's where I do a lot of things. Go by buildings, call for rents. I don't want to hog up the space. I'm just like the only one talking here.
No, go ahead. That's good.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I do the same thing. Or I'll door knock, somebody, if I can't get them at their location. I mean, pardon me for saying, but you kind of have to have balls as a woman to handle commercial real estate, and especially being in Miami, it's a little bit of a different animal. And so, I mean, I'll door knock somebody's house if I can't get them at their business.
Worst they'll do is say no.
Yep, I know, right? And then if they do that, then you just ask another question.
That's right.
I've had some success, not with a VA necessarily, but a guy on Fiverr, which I can share with you guys if you want. I mean, he was quick with pulling lists. I told him my criteria, exactly what I was looking for. Let's say, I think it was 20 to 100 units. He pulled as many as there were. He said, how do we want to narrow it down? We went to like 1980 and above. We found mom and pop only, and then that list wasn't big enough. So we built a bigger list with, we added some LLCs that he then scrubbed down and got the numbers, and, so I'll share him. And if you guys want to reach out to this guy's name is Chris. Definitely. It's like it's not a VA, so you don't have to pay him hourly. It's like a gig. It's like a one-time thing.
Right. Just like a project. Boom. Yeah. Right. Awesome.
I put it in the chat.
This is fun stuff.
It is. Our meetup is fun.
Hey, listen, anytime that anybody can share and create, right?
Yes. And the bottom line is, people, just like Jonathan says, try to think about what part of your life can be outsourced, and try once and see how it goes. It's like, I think it's I don't know, $10, $20, $30 per gig. Just let them try, even booking your travel, right? Just let them try once and see how it goes. Right?
There's so many ways. I mean, if you just start coming up with a list, like one way that we are using them now is they're designing all our PowerPoints. They're creating Canva slide decks I'm horrible at putting together stuff like that. I don't like doing it. So like I have a Notion consultant from Upwork right now that I wanted training on how to build out my Notion dashboard. There's, so many people that can do that. Then the podcast has been the most fun way, just because it's like so hands off, and I couldn't believe what people were quoting podcast editing. So it's kind of like my laugh at the industry, but there's so many ways. It's just like there's very few things that they can't do, especially in a world where we're all just behind computers and phones all day, And then I guess one thing I'll say, security wise, that's a big one that I had to get over. A great tool that you can get around this is called LastPass, where you don't have to give them any of your logins. You just add them to a tool called LastPass, and they can access these sites without ever seeing your password. So they can't ever block you out of your own accounts. And then there's ways you can monitor their activity. Even in like Upwork, it's amazing. Like, I don't understand why more US employers don't have this. On Upwork, it's screenshotting their screen every 20 seconds or so. So like they can't even be screwing around. Like they can't be on YouTube, like on their main screen. You can see and gauge their productivity. So like, why not? Give it a try. It's fun.
Cool. Okay. So Jonathan, what is your last question for you? What is your goal? Where you're going?
Ooh, okay. My monetary goal is, all right, I'll keep it kind of short and sweet. Like that's the reason I love the 12-week year right now, is because I realized that I'm a victim of something called Parkinson's law. I don't have Parkinson's, thank God. But basically there's a law that your work expands to the time you give it. That's what the law means. So if you give yourself an hour to do a task that takes 5 minutes, you'll take the full hour. But if you give yourself 5 minutes on a deadline, it'll keep that. So last year, my full goal for the year was to add 5,000 per month in passive cash flow. And I was on track, and then I kind of lulled. And at the end, when I felt the time crunch, I did it. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So now as far as like goals, I'm trying to make my year-long goals quarterly goals. So for me, I'm all about passive cash flow. My goal for Q1 is to add 30,000 in passive cash flow through Airbnb, wholesale and flip, and then this podcast course that I have coming out. And then from there, just like growing the platform and helping more people leave their jobs if they don't like their jobs, or do whatever makes them happy. If you love your job and you want to invest in real estate on the side, amazing. But like, that's what's been fun for me, is just to see people that don't like their job and kind of just get out of their job through passive income, or, you know, do things they like, you know, or get connected with people that they like more. So that's kind of it for me. The podcast, daily podcast, check it out. I'm not like a chest beater about my podcast. Most podcasts are all the exact same. Mine's probably just like the rest. So check it out. Don't, it's all good. But yeah, that's the best way. And if you ever want to connect, I try to respond on all socials, on Instagram, Twitter, I'm John J. Farb, Facebook, just Jonathan Farber. If you want to check out the Facebook group, Millennial Millionaire Through Real Estate, looking to get to 100,000 downloads on the podcast in 21 and 10,000 Facebook members. So those are like my business goals, at least. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Jonathan, man, that is awesome. And I want you to type in, if you don't mind, the best way to reach you in the chat or whatever. But I'm also going to put it in the follow-up email, and I'll include links to whatever, you know, platforms you want us to include. And I think that, you know, it sounds like you got some really cool stuff coming out for those people looking to jump into podcasting, to utilizing VAs and systems that you are already building. Reach out to Jonathan. This guy can get you started, get you rocking and rolling. And yeah, awesome. Jonathan, you're the man, dude. Thank you. And Brad, you too, man. I got to get to know you now. We got two Farbers in the house.
He's the better brother. But honestly, I'll say this, guys, last thing, if I mean it, and like to what I said before, if I was going to invest in a deal passively, these two would be the guys that I would consider, because they're good guys. They don't take shortcuts. And I know that they're actually learning the game, putting value out. So like right now, like, you know, it's not my focus, but just to the dog food that I was saying earlier, if I was going to eat it, it would be with these guys, because I think that finding an operator that you understand and that can be a good communicator and teach you and kind of be there for you is so important. So there's so many ways to do this, but the only way, I know it's like the most common thing on Bigger Pockets, take action, but like, yeah, it's just like, that's the only way forward. So thank you guys. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, let's eat them up. All right. Before we disconnect, everyone, I want to see your 2 thumbs up, and I'll just take a screenshot. And Rule, Shane, Mark, show your face.
Get him, Yosef.
Get him. Come out, please. Shane. All right, Rule. Shane, are you there? All right, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Got that. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a happy.
Thank you for the blessings.
Thank you, everybody. This is really cool.
Right,
Thanks,
on.
everyone. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Hey, Mike.
Nice meeting everybody.
Nice meeting you, Florian.
Have a good one.
Hey, Soil.
See ya.
Good to see you.
See ya. Bye.
Teresa.